It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLab PGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLab PGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at fitlabpgh. Already a fan of FitLab PGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLab PGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why FitLab PGH also releases 1-minute movement tip and lifestyle hack videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And every Thursday, we do a written FitLab Pittsburgh features. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us some feedback on whatever podcast app you listen to. Drop us a message and give us suggestions for future interviews or future FitLab Pittsburgh features. Today's interview is the fourth person FitLab Pittsburgh has interviewed twice. We traveled to the South Side. We talked to Valerie Beichner, the new executive director of Venture Outdoors. Valerie and Venture Outdoors certainly fit the ethos that movement should be a lifestyle, not just an activity. FitLab PGH back with another podcast episode. As we've said before, and we continue to say, movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity. And we're kind of prejudiced in the fact that we enjoy our movement, if at all possible, outside. So I think today's interview is a perfect example to talk to us about that. We first interviewed her probably 8 or 9 months ago in a coffee shop, and there was actually a picture of me somewhere out on the internet hugging a gigantic life-size teddy bear, which got a lot of positive feedback on Facebook. And shortly after that, by the wonders of social media, we saw that Valerie Beichner had left her position at Friends of the Riverfront, and she is the, I think we can still say, new executive director of Venture Outdoors. Yes. So Valerie, thank you for agreeing to talk to FitLab Pittsburgh a second time. You are only the fourth person in somewhere around 150 interviews that we have done twice. So you are one of the good ones.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
I think our first question we always ask, and for people, we've asked this before, but we'll just kind of cover a little bit of your background. Pittsburgh native? If not, why are you in Pittsburgh?
I am not a Pittsburgh native, actually. I first moved to Pittsburgh in 2004 out of college to work for Channel 11 News. Boomeranged around for a little while and came back in 2008 to start my career in environmental nonprofits.
And I know when we first met you, you were Friends of the Riverfront and you were the executive director there. And I think one of the things that really struck me, and I've mentioned you not by name, but by description in a number of podcast interviews I've had, is you are not a lifetime mover. And I think the neat thing for anybody who's looking at being more active is really finding movement and being active both alone and with your family has really changed your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just having this conversation earlier today with a colleague of mine. Being from rural Pennsylvania, people assume that you're always outdoors and that you're always moving, and that wasn't actually my childhood experience. I did not start to move and start to enjoy my relationship with the outdoors and my relationship with physical activity until around 2014. I am, as I've, stated in the past, a former 2-pack a day smoker and self-proclaimed junk food addict. And all of that changed in 2014 when my husband and I undertook our very first 5K ever, the Susan G. Komen 5K that year, and just really became addicted to running. Eventually running from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh as part of a 2-man relay for my oldest child's fundraiser for the Pittsburgh Children's Hospital. Now I'm a self-proclaimed ultramarathoner, and I actually just locked in my very first ultra coach to undertake my first 100-miler next year.
Very cool. And which 100-miler is that?
Oil Creek.
Somebody we've interviewed in the past has talked about that, and whoever you are, I think it's either Jim Scall or Jeff Smith up in Slippery Rock has talked about that. So whichever one of you I missed, I apologize for that. What I thought was most interesting when we first talked to you about that relay run from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh is not the fact that you each flip-flopped off and ran about a half a marathon or a little more, a little less each day. But once you finished running, you then had to be the mother or the father to your 4 children. So you couldn't just stop, relax, and say, okay, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, we took all 4 of our children with us on that adventure. We spent 11 days basically hopping each other about 15 to 18 miles a day. So my husband would run 15 to 18 miles in the morning. I would have the children, and then we would meet him and pick him up. And he would take the kids, and I would run my 15 to 18. He would meet me. The kids and us would all do a 1-mile family fun run and go have dinner and do it all over again the next day for 335 miles.
Very impressive. And I think I told you in our last interview, you had mentioned I don't really consider myself an athlete. And I said, yes, if you do that, you are an athlete. Maybe not so much the relay run, but definitely taking care of 4 kids afterwards, because I know how active kids can be. I think it's really important for people to listen, because there's kind of always a division of 4 groups: people who can't imagine life without exercising, people who don't understand why somebody would want to exercise, and people who go, yeah, I wish I could exercise. So in 2014, what was the impetus for you said, I want to run a 5K? Because as a junk food person, and definitely as a former 2-pack a day smoker, I've seen 2 people in my life, one individual run a 5K, and he finished and ran to his car and grabbed a pack of cigarettes and lit up a cigarette, which I was kind of shocked with. And then when I lived in Atlanta, I used to ride with a guy who was retired military, and he was either a co-pilot or a pilot for one of the major airlines. And he would kick my butt on very, very hilly rides and then pull up to his car and light a cigarette. So those are 2 people who have done endurance athletes who were smokers. I'm not in touch with either of them. What was it as a 2-pack a day smoker said, I'm going to run a 5K?
So I quit smoking in 2011, and I think that was the first step towards my health and wellness journey. And, I quit smoking because I was pregnant, and just didn't go back to it, fortunately, after that pregnancy. But it was really one of the hardest things I ever had to do, right? Cold turkey. And because I had to fight so hard to not be a smoker, I didn't ever want to go back to that. It did take a long time, by the way, before I stopped thinking about smoking. To this day, every now and again, I think about it. But in 2014, it really was, okay, we have 4 kids. We live a completely sedentary lifestyle, and we've put on a lot of weight, right? Like, things have just gotten out of control. I'm no longer in my 20s. I can't just eat whatever I want and call it fine. The pounds are starting to pack on. We have a poor health history in my family, and I've really, in the last 10 to 20 years, watched my mother's health significantly decline, and I didn't want to follow in the same footsteps. So we just started running because it was cheap and it was easy, and I had a pair of sneakers and some jogging pants, right? And then we quickly realized this isn't going to stick if we don't set a goal. So we set the 5K goal, and that 5K in the moment was so difficult. It was so hard to train for, and it was so hard to undertake that first 3.1 miles. But when we hit that finish line and we realized what we achieved, and that euphoric feeling of having done something that I never thought I could do, was in itself really addictive. And we went from 5Ks we jumped up to the 10-miler. We jumped up to the half marathon, and it's just continued to climb from there. So it's been a really fast journey. It's been really shocking. This isn't somebody I thought that I would ever grow to be, but I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I have this relationship. And now really, I want to bring this feeling to so many other people who in this moment are the person who I'm sitting at home and I don't think that I could ever be that person.
And now, is it the fun or the joy of crossing the finish line, or is it the fact that you get to add another T-shirt to your collection?
I lecture my husband constantly about his abuse of free T-shirts and wearing them every day. I always say it's the addiction to a medal and a medic at the finish line that just does something for me. It's definitely the medals. We have a wall of medals in our kitchen to help keep us motivated. So we just bought a long curtain rod and we just started putting our medals on it. And the really fun part is now my 8-year-old son has really blossomed into a runner, and his curtain rod is right under ours with all of his little medals hanging. So we're watching him collect with us.
I'm going to stand in support of your husband of the T-shirts being useful. When I defended my dissertation and wore a collared shirt, I had a number of people come up to me and tell me they didn't know that I owned a shirt without writing on it.
Nice.
So a lot of people, they start doing running events or cycling events or swimming events or triathlons. And they kind of, once they've done it, they've kind of done the traditional events, the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, maybe the marathon. Some people don't go even that far. They kind of check it off and say, okay, I've done that sort of movement. I'm going to move on to something else. Maybe I'm going to go into bike touring or canoeing. Why the continuation to say, okay, I'm going to do a 100-miler now next year?
I don't know. Maybe I just don't like the feeling of, waking up without sore muscles, I guess. I just want to keep pushing myself, right? So, I don't want to get to a moment in my life where I say that I didn't try, that I didn't try to get out there and do as much as I possibly could, because, there will come a day when I'm told that this kind of movement, this kind of activity, isn't possible for me anymore. When we started Moira's mission, at first I was really scared of it, right? This journey from DC to Pittsburgh. So I made my husband and I go to the PCP and get checked out. And I was for sure they were going to tell me he was too unhealthy to do something like this. And it wasn't him, it was me. And they discovered that I had this skipped heartbeat or heart murmur or something, and they didn't know what it was, but they said, you can't run any further than you've already run right now, because we don't know what this is and we don't know what's going to happen to you. We don't know how safe it is for you to run. And it was a couple of months before they figured out that they're PVCs and that everything will be okay. And here's the plan of attack moving forward to keep me healthy and safe while I'm running. But in those couple of months, it was a really hard realization to think I've already screwed up so badly with my eating habits and smoking and et cetera, that in my early 30s, I'm being told that I can't do this. So when I got the all clear, the mindset flipped to, I'm just going to do this for as long and as hard as I can until they tell me I can't.
Do you ever, or do you and your husband ever think about the fact that you're setting the next generation, your 4 kids, up to hopefully, knock on wood, not do what you did and say, okay, I'm going to start out with my early years smoking and eating all kinds of junk food and just saying, exercise, what's that?
That's the hope, right? So back in the day when I had little ones, with my first couple and I was still a smoker, I'm not proud of it, but my children would mimic my smoking habit. And now my children mimic my running habit, and they want to eat runner food, and they want to dress like a runner, and they want to get on the floor and do the runner stretches with mommy. So I'm really hoping that we're setting a new stage for them, for their own health and wellness. And we talk about it all the time with them. We talk about how it's so important to care for yourself, because when you get older, everything you do right now, today, as an 8-year-old, as a 6-year-old, as a 13-year-old, that is setting the stage for your health and wellness when you're 60, 70, and 80. And if you want to be moving and living on your own and doing fun things in those years, we've got to start now. So I'm hoping that that's going to stick with them, but we'll see.
And the nice thing that you probably realize now is, even with running shoes for your kids and for you and for your husband, it's probably still less money over the course of the year than the cigarettes.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
Plus, they come in different colors.
Exactly, yes.
So you also said that you moved back to Pittsburgh to start your career in environmental nonprofits. What was the impetus to say environmental nonprofits? And actually, before you answer that, kind of a precursor question, what the heck is an environmental nonprofit?
So an environmental nonprofit, there are, as you know, the Pittsburgh region is home to nonprofits. And Pittsburgh itself is this glorious, gritty, wonderful hometown city that has had to reinvent itself multiple times over the last couple of centuries, right, in order to sustain itself and sustain the communities that are here. And a big part of the evolution in recent decades is that environmental revolution. So there are all kinds of amazing nonprofit organizations that focus, either narrowly or holistically on the environmental piece that is our community, right? So when I moved here in 2008, it really was dumb luck that I fell into the energy sector, and that rolled into an energy reduction program working with municipalities, which rolled into getting a job at Green Building Alliance and working with building product manufacturers to help them understand the greenness or lack thereof of their products that they were selling to the community or at large for buildings. So that's sort of how I landed accidentally in environmental nonprofits, and it's just grown from there. The journey from DC to Pittsburgh was sort of a big step in evolving my personal journey and my career. So while I'm still in an environmental nonprofit here at Venture Outdoors, more of our environmentalism and more of our desire to get people and in the physical environment is related to movement.
I know in the health field, one of the jokes is the physician who comes in with a pack of cigarettes sticking out of his or her pocket, and they're 25 or 30 pounds overweight. And they look at you and they say, well, you really need to watch what you eat, or you really need to cut down on your smoking, or you really need to exercise. So it's kind of a do what I say, not what I do. And I know from interviewing you a few months back in your previous position, you kind of practice what you preach. And I'm hoping that you bring this to Venture Outdoors. And we talked before recording, probably a third of the people in Pittsburgh know what Venture Outdoors is. A third of the people don't. And maybe a third of the people are kind of aware, but don't know exactly what they are. So you're in the elevator. Somebody says, what's Venture Outdoors? What do you tell them?
Venture Outdoors is the local organization in Southwest PA that has the tools and resources and equipment to help everyone in our community get outside and have fun.
And I guess some people will look at you then and say, why do they want to get outside? And this is, I think, a great opportunity to tell people about why you want to get outside. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. It was 15 degrees this morning. I was in Mingo Creek Park and I saw one other person. Whereas if it had been 75 degrees, I probably would have seen 35 or 40.
We are so fortunate in southwestern Pennsylvania to have such a beautiful physical environment to enjoy with our rivers and, our hills, and the landscape is gorgeous. And we have 4 beautiful seasons currently. Another story for another day. So getting outside is really about enjoying the beauty that's around us. But getting outside is also a huge part of our health and wellness and our mental wellness, right? It's free to get outside. It's free to go outside and hike. A lot of people don't know where to go. Where do I walk? Where do I hike? Where is it appropriate for me to, maybe cross country ski or go snowshoeing, fishing? I really am interested in fishing, but I don't know how. I don't know where. We sort of answer the how and the where, and we bring the expertise to you and fill in those blanks so that you can go outside and that you can enjoy the environment without needing to make a massive investment yourself.
And I know I've been fortunate I can't remember when I wasn't outside. And I think when I first moved to Pittsburgh, the first time I heard about Venture Outdoors was the Banff Film Festival. And that may be some people's only knowledge of Venture Outdoors, or they may know about Kayak Pittsburgh, which goes both in North Park and down on the rivers here in the city. But it does more than that. And how did Venture Outdoors start? I mean, you weren't the first executive director, but I'm sure somebody didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let's start this thing called Venture Outdoors to get more people outside.
So I do know the founding executive director, and I actually worked under him at Green Building Alliance. We stay very connected even to this day. And 20 years ago, it was a cohort of volunteers and people who were really interested in the outdoors and interested in outdoor activity and saw an opportunity and a market here to help bring that, to the community. So back in the day, they started with a very small cohort of volunteers who would put together outings for individuals. And we have just grown since then to providing hundreds and hundreds of outdoor activities for every age range. We have youth programming. We have a program called Venture Outdoors Again, which focuses on our senior community and helping them get outside. We have adaptive programs to help anyone in our community, including those with physical limitations, enjoy the outdoors, and that includes our water sports. You make a really great point. Kayak Pittsburgh is probably what a lot of people recognize the most. I like to brag and tell people that you can't look at a photograph of Pittsburgh and not see one of our yellow kayaks out there. And that's Kayak Pittsburgh, right? So we currently have 3 locations for Kayak Pittsburgh, in downtown Pittsburgh, in Aspinwall, and at North Park, just north of the city, where you can go and rent kayaks or canoes, and enjoy the water in a safe way.
And I know I have a special part in my heart for Kayak Pittsburgh. My dad had just finished bladder cancer treatment the first year they had it, and he came to visit me, and I took him, and he was a kayaker, and he was really excited to see that he was still able to kayak and canoe. So it's something that, whether you realize it or not, you're also affecting people who are not Pittsburgh natives or living in Pittsburgh.
It's a great way to experience the city, to get out onto, for non-Pittsburgh natives and natives alike, it is a really amazing way to experience our communities, to get on that water and see it from a totally different vantage point.
I know with social media these days, one of the things that's so great is it's so easy to find information. One of the things that's so terrible is there's so much information. So somebody may be listening to this. This will probably air just before the new year comes around, where hopefully we'll have a relatively mild winter where you can still get outside, but there's enough snow. And there's a lot of things that you can do with Venture Outdoors. I was looking at your webpage this morning. So somebody's kind of saying, I want to do something outside. I recognize there are all these opportunities. Any suggestions as a new executive director? Where do they start? How do they figure out what to do?
A great way to start is our website. Go to ventureoutdoors.org. Right on the homepage is our calendar of events, and you can sort through that calendar based on the type of activity that you're looking for, or you could just peruse all of them, and just pick and choose something that's interesting for you. I love going to our website and filtering through the family-friendly events for my own children, right? So we have hikes that are combined with s'mores, and we have, family-friendly trail runs, to introduce families together to the idea of trail running right alongside of their little ones. So I would start with our website.
And people are looking at the website and they can see these things. I know one of the questions that people often have when they start new activities is, I don't want to be the last person, or I don't want to hold people back, or I don't know how to run on a trail. I've only run on the road. What do you say to people like that?
Don't worry. We've got you covered. We've got all the equipment we bring to the events, and we have a really amazing team of volunteer trip leaders that lead these trips for us. And these are really knowledgeable individuals. They're well-trained. They know their craft. They're really engaging individuals, and they are really the force that makes it such a welcoming community. We have events for everyone from the novice beginner all the way up to very skilled experts. So don't worry if you don't know exactly what you're doing. We'll ensure that our team can get you the information you need.
And I think something you mentioned is really important to emphasize, because some of these activities can be pricey to start out and try and realize, I really don't like that. I mean, if you decide I want to cross-country ski and you go buy the cross-country ski package, or I was just in REI before coming up here to interview you and was reminded that I'm glad I have snowshoes now. But I think the thing that you emphasized is you have the equipment, so you can, as a participant, dabble in a variety of events that you would spend literally thousands of dollars for. If you said, I want to try all these things, I'm going to buy all this equipment.
Exactly. We have the equipment. right? So, you don't need to make a large investment if it's something that you just want to dip your toe in, or if you're only going to get the opportunity to do it once or twice a year.
Especially if you're talking about things like cross-country skiing.
Right.
Not everybody, my Rolfer, Brian Jolie, goes up to Canada 3 or 4 times a year specifically because that's kind of his event. He loves to cross-country ski. Question I think people also want to know is, you're a Pittsburgh native, you look up on the website, you say, oh, there's all these neat events. We've got the holiday season coming up. Do you have to be a Pennsylvania native, or what's the requirement to come and participate in a Venture Outdoors activity? Is somebody going to show up and say, oh, no, you're from West Virginia or you're from Ohio, you can't participate?
Nope. We'll take everyone. And that's the everyone part of what Venture Outdoors is. That's why we have the equipment. That's why we have, the well-trained staff and well-trained volunteers, because we want this to be accessible for everyone. We're not checking driver's licenses to see, what region you're from. We're an open community.
I know with FitLab Pittsburgh and my sister podcast, Moving to Live, I've interviewed quite a few people. And one of the things that I often see for people who are lifelong movers is they hit somewhere around the age of 35 and they start to realize, it's not just about me being the first person across the finish line or me having this neat experience. It's being able to do the activity and share it with other people. So there are probably people listening who are going, I really like the Venture Outdoors thing. I know how to kayak or I know how to cross-country ski, but how could I get involved to be a volunteer and help other people enjoy what I've enjoyed, and maybe on the backside have a way to get rid of some of my extra equipment that it's just taking up space, and hey, you want a nice kayak? Here's a kayak that I'm not using.
So you can give me a call. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for interested individuals that would like to come and participate with us. And you bring up a really interesting point, about our outdoor activities. I was just out last week with Venture Outdoors on an urban hike out in the Sewickley area. So hiking through the village of Sewickley, but also up in the hills in Sewickley Heights, through the woods in the pitch black, and it's gorgeous. But the people who are there aren't just there to get a good, 3.5 hour hike in. They're also there because that's their social component, right? They're there to meet people who are like-minded. They're there to meet different people, that they wouldn't run into ordinarily. Yeah.
We're talking to Valerie Beichner. She is the executive director of Venture Outdoors. We've discussed a little bit about the wide variety of activities. As a runner, what is the activity that you've participated so far with Venture Outdoors that you found the most interesting or hardest? And then as a follow-up to that, what's the one activity that you're kind of looking forward to, but kind of like, ooh, this is going to be a pretty big adventure for me?
All right. Well, don't judge me. So...
And to help you out before this, I ask a similar question for both podcasts. One person that I've interviewed in the past for my other podcast said, I took a yoga class once. It was enough. So it's different for everybody. Just because somebody likes to go swim in the river doesn't mean that's what you have to like to do. Right.
Yeah. So I think, that's a big question. I consider myself a runner and a quote unquote strict runner. But a year ago, 3 years ago now, I was able to go out for the very first time kayaking with Venture Outdoors on a trip. And it was an amazing experience. It was a little nerve-wracking for me because I'm not a water sport person and I actually personally don't swim that well. But it was really freeing to learn that new skill and master it relatively quickly, enough so that I could really enjoy the physical environment and my friends that were around me. So I think that was really surprising. I think the most relaxing activity I've been able to do with Venture Outdoors so far is this earlier this spring, I went fishing in downtown, right? So over lunchtime, I think a couple times a month, we hold a fishing component where you can just come down and cast a line and hang out and just stare at that gorgeous city skyline.
And I think the question fishermen or fisherwomen are going to want to know is, what did you catch?
Nothing. I caught nothing.
And when Valerie says that, she's putting her arms out about 3 feet apart saying it was this big. And then kind of the other question, is there a event that Venture Outdoors has coming up that you're looking forward to or maybe a little bit nervous about, saying this is something I want to try? I think it'll be something I'll talk about in the future.
Yeah. So this is the don't judge me part, that I am not a camper. I am a glamper, to be honest with you. So when we did Moira's mission, we really hopped bed and breakfast and hotels the whole way up. I was not going to camp. So I think, one of the things that I'm most excited about, in programming with VO is being able to go out with a community of, individuals and learn how to camp. And it's something that I'm hoping to be able to, share with my children once I figure it out. My kids have always asked to go camping, and I'm like, no, but I don't know how to camp. So that's, the team here and our volunteers are really, just, providing a wealth of information and experiences, even to me, let alone the community at large.
And I'll let you one tip on that to kind of put in the back of your mind. If any of the leaders offer to take you snipe hunting while on the camping trip, just say no. We've been talking to Valerie Beichner. She is the new executive director of Venture Outdoors. One final time for people who don't know, Valerie, what is Venture Outdoors again?
Venture Outdoors is the organization in southwestern Pennsylvania that can help everyone get outside and have fun.
Movement is a lifestyle. Valerie, thank you for taking time to talk to FitLab Pittsburgh about your movement adventure and also the things you are doing to help other people move as the executive director of Venture Outdoors.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLab PGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLab PGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.